call a meeting for the purpose of presenting the budget. Councilman Ram is present, Councilman Powell is present, Councilman Demick is present, and myself, Alan Hall, is present. So that being said, I will turn it over to our city manager, who will get us started on our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully everybody can see the slides. There we go. What I want to do tonight is give everyone kind of a overview of the entire budget, kind of go piece by piece, break it down so that people have a good base understanding, and then obviously this workshop is for mayor and council to drill into the details, and if there are comments, thoughts, we will definitely get to those. What I want to do, obviously, is to provide a complete budget highlight from the perspective of the staff that's been working on this for some time, and to go over where we are financially, look at the various department operations, and there's a couple of, well, several very good budget assumptions that the budget is built upon, and we want to cover those so that you're well aware of those things. And then the most key part is talking about the options and policy decisions that I would like for the mayor and council to consider tonight. Basically, this is just a slide from last year that just gives you an appreciation for the manager's role in the budget process. Obviously, council is the elected representatives of the people, and they select the manager, and the manager works with the departments to put together the budget requests, and then once you approve the budget, of course, oversee that process to make sure that we stick as close as we can to that budget plan. The timeline for our budget this year started way back in January. We took a look at how we were doing based on the last budget, and then, of course, we launched into our schedule, and we held our citizen chalkboard to get direct citizen impact early on. That happened in the April timeframe. Between January and May, the department heads were working closely with me to submit their requests for operations. Those requests were in line with the budget guidance memo that was issued in January. And then, of course, we sat and whittled and went back and forth, and we didn't make across-the-board cuts, we made strategic cuts. And I'll get into the details of that in just a minute, but we worked quite a bit on that. And now here we are tonight for the kind of first look at the budget, where we are. And then, of course, we have to have the final adopted budget in place before 30 June as required. Just a few budget highlights for you. The bulk of the budget is obviously made up of the general fund. General fund this year is requested at $11.7 million. That compares to $11.9 million the year before. So again, a much leaner budget than we had. Total budget is up though, because mainly you look at the actual request in 17, we were moving from 22 to 29 million. Most of that, the bulk of that, is made up of large capital projects. And of course, we have T-SPLOS funds this year that we did not have last year. This is kind of a summary of revenues. Again, as you can see, the large part in mayor and council, there should be a hard copy of the same thing that I've got on the slides here, so y'all can follow along. The general fund obviously is the biggest piece in terms of revenues at 11.7, and then adding up all the various revenue sources, that's what we're coming at with the 29. The expenses by fund, you'll see that again, mostly in the general fund is the large heavy hitter. That's where they all are. The bulk of them are. And one of the things that's been difficult this year to deal with in the budget process is the changeover from the HAT funds. You know, I won't go into all of the history of that. We don't have time. It really serves no purpose. But the main thing to understand is that there was a change in how HAT funds were to be used. And instead of utilizing them for some expenses that were allowed under the general fund per previous attorney rulings, that situation has changed. So we had to actually find a way to move about $700,000 to $800,000 in HAT fund operations and costs into the general fund. So that was quite a task. The HAT funds are structured basically into 3 buckets. Bucket A is your DMO, your Destination Marketing Organization money, which is 2.1 cents. Bucket B is your basic restricted funds for buildings and facilities related to tourism that can be used for that purpose. And then bucket C is the general fund, which is 2.9 cents or roughly 3 cents that can be moved into the general fund and used for any municipal government purpose.
Wait, could you go back one slide?
Yes.
So I have, well, maybe, to where it says summary of revenues
Yes.
versus expenses.
Yes.
So I was looking at the tourism and trade fund for revenue, so bringing in is 1.6, but
Yes.
then expenditure is 1.9.
Yes.
Could you explain that?
Yes, there's a little difference there because there's some carryover dollars that are earmarked for us to transfer. When we sign the DMO contract, we're going to immediately cut a check for those revenues. Those are one-time revenues, they're not ongoing revenues. This number, the 1.6, is made up of ongoing revenue streams.
Okay,
Is that
okay.
correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this gives you just, because I love pictures, it makes more sense to me when I look at it visually to kind of break down what the funds are going towards. As you can see, again, the bulk of the expenditures of the city is in the general fund. That's followed by the next largest fund, which is your capital fund. And again, in the capital fund, that is not all city costs. That is a lot of grant money in there, but there are some city matches and hard expenditures that make up that total, but a lot of that is grant funds. You have your T-SPLOST, again, showing up for the first time now in our budget. Our Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, again, that's a self-sustaining fund, and then your Solid Waste Fund and your Stormwater Fund. As a percentage of budget, this is just kind of a graphic depiction of what the charts showed. Again, just a kind of a quick summary so that people can see it in a different format. Because I know Diane likes charts and I like pictures, so I've got something for
I
everybody.
actually like the
She likes spreadsheets.
numbers. I like the hard numbers. And I guess my question on this one is you have a percentage of total, and what's that on that top line? What's that 39.3% a percentage of?
That's the total percentage of the general fund of the total $29 million budget.
The 29, okay.
William, on things like T-SPLOST, you got 4%. How predictable is that? It's from the pie before.
It's actually just a revenue projection at this point. We have no actual experience. What we did was we took the amounts that Fulton County projected, and then we just took a swag and said, okay, multiply that times 12. The actual first check will come in within days now, probably next week. And then what we will do is have a better idea of what that revenue stream will look like long-term. But at this point, it was just kind of a projection based
Fulton
on.
County created a final estimate as we got through this, the T-SPLOST.
I think the total for T-SPLOST for the county is $756 million.
Are we gonna go with a lower number than they're predicting, or are we just hoping for every penny of it? In terms
No,
of budget?
we're working off of.
Because I would think every month it's gonna vary depending on spending, you know.
It
Christmas
will,
time
but
would be
there was
higher.
an actual budget amount that they projected for us.
And the county went
generated
low on
that.
the estimates, they went on the
Okay,
lower
well, that's
side.
good to know.
They went on the lower side. of the
Yeah,
estimate.
I think our estimate was 6.3 million, something like that,
Over the 5 years.
over the 5 years, so.
Okay.
Okay, again, this is a different way to look at the funds. This is isolating or zeroing in on the general fund itself. As you can see, before you even get out the door, our friends in public safety have spent half the money. Police and fire pretty much take up the bulk of the funds in this category. And then that's followed by community services, and then, you know, general government, community services, and then other smaller expenditures like recreation and planning.
So what is considered general government? The 21.8?
That's things like the finance department, the legal department, the clerk, city clerk,
Okay, okay.
just the general administrative
Most of the people in City
functions
Hall.
that it takes to make the government run.
Okay, I may have missed a slide as you've gone by. Did we get, right, how about now? Budget comparison by fund, a chart rather than a, not by function, but by fund. Is that may be coming
Is that
up?
one with the blue dot?
Blue dot,
Okay, that one was pulled out.
okay.
In other words, there were so many slides, I sent all the slides that the staff generated in your initial package, but for purposes of tonight, to try to shorten up the presentation, I pulled a few.
Huh? No, I have a question about it.
Yeah, all the ones with the blue dots we pulled, but if you have a question, I'll be happy to try and respond.
So if it's updated, it means this isn't in there. Okay.
He said, go ahead and ask. So.
Yeah, what's your question?
Yeah.
Okay, my
You have a
question is, there's a, this is a budget comparison by fund, and the percentage change, on the top line it says general fund, amount requested for 2018 is 11,726,000, down 1.8. Is that down from the previous year, or down from the 2014, or it doesn't say it's
Just down from the previous year.
so previous year's change,
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
so, and I'm gonna get to this later when we get to the capital funds. I see under capital funds project requested for 2018 is 9,584,000, up 143%. And I know further down, we're gonna have a chart that has all of that capital funds on there, because I don't understand the accounting for it. I don't know how it could be in a budget. I don't know whether this is money that has been committed to by whoever we received the grant from. If it is net of what we've already paid, say Keck and Woods,
It's
or,
the total cost of the project, okay, is what goes into the capital fund. And many of these grants, in fact, I'd say 99% of them, are reimbursable grants. So we have to expend the funds and then build to get them back.
so in, say, the majority of the grants I've ever been aware of, like 80/20.
Yes, ma'am.
So of this 9.5 million, say almost 10 million, we're gonna have to come up with 1.2 million.
In hard cash, yes, for us, but the actual reimbursement will cover the balance of the project, yes.
So, but where is that 1.2 million on here?
It's included in the total
Total of,
of the
The
grant
9
of the
million.
project.
okay, well, I'll wait till you get to that slide.
Okay.
That's the,
I'm fortunate we have Lee here who has probably forgotten more of this stuff than I ever know. So he's very familiar with all of our projects, and that's how they work, is reimbursable grants. Okay, so we've already covered this. Now we'll take a look at how the general fund breaks down by function. And as you can see, we did quite a bit of whittling on selected portions of the budget in the general fund. For example, your general government functions are down 11.5%. Police and fire did okay, they're up just a little bit. And then the community services sacrificed some, and then, of course, recreation was hit pretty hard in the final recommendations. So what do we do with most of the general fund, since it's the biggest fund, you know, and that's where the bulk of the services for the city flow from? What's in it? What's in that soup? Well, it's mostly people. That's what it is. And that's why it's kind of hard when you go cutting, because once you cut the people, you cut the service. The service delivery can't take place because it's made up of staff that actually do these things. Now, there is a certain percentage of other things that happen, you know, travel, training, you know, other kinds of expenses, but the bulk of that cost is made up of staff costs. And, let's see, just to give you a feel for the personnel where they're allocated, the bulk of the staff is in fire and police. There's some staffing, of course, for general government and some of these other functions, but that's where the bulk of them are. Just to give you a feel for numbers, there were some people in the community that I heard from time to time saying that, well, we have a lot of staff here. We have more staff than we've ever had. Well, the facts just don't bear that comment out. And it's interesting, I tried to find the records for 2005 because that's when the Ford plant closed, but apparently those records are buried somewhere in a warehouse. We can't find them. But we do have the next year, and you can see that we were at 152 full-time employees. And of course, as the recession set in, naturally you see that curve go down. I mean, the city did cut its costs in terms of laying off people, and what I had heard, I wasn't here, what I heard was when someone left, they just didn't replace them and they gave them all of their work to do plus what they already had. So that's how that kind of went down. Over the years, it's kind of crept up just a little bit, but since I came in 15, we're kind of, you know, trending down a little bit. It's not going way up. We're trying to control our costs. One of the ways we're doing that is through more use of more technology.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Talking about where we cut. So it's like 3 or 4 slides back. I was trying to.
Oh, okay. You mean
General
that?
fund expenditures by function. So
Yeah,
by
right here?
percentage change, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So for general government, I would just like to know, like, where are we cutting, what are we getting rid of in each of these departments?
Okay.
So can we sort of go department by department and find out, like, what are we exactly cutting from them?
Yeah, we are later in the presentation
Okay.
going to go department by department.
Okay, so we can do it then.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Okay. Property values is, of course, our #1 revenue source that makes this engine run, makes it operate. And the property tax, as you know, is made up of 2 pieces, the commercial piece and the residential piece. And what has been happening in terms of trends over the last decade is that the commercial property values have been holding fairly well, and the burden of funding government has shifted to business, shifted to commercial. The housing citizens, residents, if you will, used to pay quite a bit more of the bill, but because of the Great Recession and the loss of property values, they slid down. So the actual cost that residents pay has been falling quite a bit. And it's beginning to level out as the property appraiser goes back in and looks at these things, but that's basically what the trend lines are and what they show right now.
So when do we think these trend lines for residential are actually gonna hit realistic figures? Or at least close to realistic, you know?
It's anybody's guess, but I know that sale data is part of what they work off of, so as people buy and sell homes, you know, hopefully they're watching those trends. Those things tend to climb more slowly. I would say 2 or 3 years, you'll start to see this line, if the economy holds, turn the other way. But
We
right
saw-
now, it's
we-
on a, you know, on a slide.
It was on a flat line.
Yeah.
So we saw its deep decline in like 2010 to 2012. And, I think we've also seen housing prices increase from 14 to 16.
Yes.
I've personally seen my house almost triple in value during that time. But my taxes have not gone up at all.
There's a lag between
And
what
what
happens
is
in the
that
market
lag? Like,
and
I know-
County Assessor's Office.
it's the county assessor, period. It's their
Because they set
function
the
to do
values
that.
value.
So,
The ones they do, they're hitting hard, but they're just not getting to it.
Right, they're not getting there with that.
okay.
So
And
when
we
you
have-
said
we
your
have to
value was
rely-
up, what were you looking at when you said yours was up?
So my house, I got it appraised recently.
Okay, so that was independent appraiser?
Yeah.
Not the county?
Not the county. I had it appraised for 160, and my house is appraised at 60. They take 40% off. I don't mind. They wouldn't take it. I'm sure I could mail it to them.
But did you go
So
ahead,
incompetent up there, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
did you do the refi that?
I did not.
Okay, well then that's not gonna hit the system.
Yeah,
Right, right.
So loans, sales transactions, those kinds of things that they can pick up in the system that actually went through and closed, they should, in theory, pick those up. And then that'll push the trend in the other direction.
so is my appraisal ever gonna go up if I never sell my house?
Well,
Lacombe County will they will reassess.
yeah,
but
They are on a
when
3-year
they will
cycle?
reassess.
Maybe not till you sell it, but you can support.
See, in
the sale.
Florida, they're on a 1-year cycle. Every year they go out and look at values.
Right.
In Georgia, I think they're on a 3-year cycle.
10, I think.
Well,
Depends the
yeah,
reality.
seems to be
And
that.
so
25.
that's what they say, is that they try to look
And
at.
it doesn't have to be sold or any kind of transaction to take place for the value to go up. I know my business partner's house in Fayette County, he lives in Brooks, and his has increased substantially year after year after year, and he hasn't refied or anything.
Yeah.
It's just their assessor's more aggressive.
And I think we're that zip code anomaly of all Fulton County, and I think I've
Right.
heard that before. I think the rest of the county's back to pre-07 levels of assessments, and, I'm still like you, down 70% from 07, so my street is not recovered yet.
Yeah, and it also hurts home sale values. Why do you wanna buy a home for 160 when it's appraised by the county at 60?
Right. And it does. It enters into negotiations.
It does.
Probably drives prices down. So
Yeah, it's hurting us 3 or 4 fold.
Hopefully you noticed the strongly worded letter I sent to the
I just got
county
it.
today.
I didn't have time to read it, but I
Yes,
skimmed it.
We stay on it, but in one form or fashion. So this is just a chart kind of showing that same trend where back in 2008, the average homeowner paid about $782 a year for city services. According to the latest trends, we're at around $411 for the same service, and I would argue better service. You're paying less than half what you did in 2008. And this is more of a graphic depiction of that. So that's part of why the general fund is suffering. That's part of the reason why it's kind of a struggle to balance the budget, is because your property values on the residential side are lagging so far behind the commercial side, and the cost of providing these services continues to be rising and a challenge, yet the funds to work with haven't kept pace, so.
Yeah, because you're seeing inflation increasing, you're seeing salaries increase, you're seeing everybody increase except.
Except the revenue.
Right, and that's why I think it's pretty extraordinary, and I'm very proud of my team to be able to deliver the quality services that we do for that kind of price tag. And so I think that's pretty amazing, and I have to tip my hat to my team here. They're pretty amazing folks, and they do a great job.
Yeah, for $371, you get a lot for your money.
Yeah. What is that a month? $60 a month? 65?
30.
30? Okay, it used to be, that's what it was. I think you were paying about 65 a month here, and now you're paying 30 or 35 here. For the same stuff,
$35.
only better. Tell me any store in America that's true. Again, this is just a different way to look at some of the things, the excess funds that we have in the city to operate for a rainy day. Let's just say a tornado were to drop down out of the sky, or we were to have, God forbid, another economic recession. We have to have kind of a savings account set aside. And what this trend line shows is that the city did the right thing. When things were tough in the economy, you know, because the property values dropped, the millage rate went up to compensate, and then we took our savings and we spent it. So that basically it came down, and then now we're slowly trying to build that fund balance up so that we are protected should we have another event that we need those funds for. Right now, the fund balance is around $1.5 million, which is roughly 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks of operating room if we didn't get any more revenue or funds in to the cities. And that's kind of a slim margin. Most communities I've been a part of, budgets, you know, your fund balance runs between 20 and 40%, which is generally 4 to 6 months in reserves. So you just think of it in your own household. You know, you tend to try to put some money away for a rainy day, and you like to have, you know, 3, 4, 5 months just in case something happens. Okay, so let's go taking a look at operations in each department. The budget overall is pretty tight. In fact, I told my staff that it's one of the tightest budgets I've ever been involved in. It squeaks when it walks. It's not my favorite budget, but it's actually amazing that we were able to balance it. And overall, if you look through everything, you'll find that it takes care of your basic needs. It makes sure that we can sustain our operations and comply with, you know, the ever-increasing demands of state and federal government, things that we have to do. And then, of course, there's a small piece of some nice-to-haves, not a lot of frills, not a lot of extras, but there are a few layered into the overall cake. So let's take a look at this. The budget, again, is balanced. We do not need to, if you make no further changes, we do not need to dip into our rainy day fund. We do not need to raise taxes. We do not need to do anything. It is balanced as it sits. It maintains our staffing levels. It plans for what growth we can foresee at the time. You know, as we're looking at it, it tries to maximize efficiencies wherever we can. And the overall theme is the same old tune that I hate playing every year: do more with less. That's just kind of that new music that's out there that everybody has to deal with. Some of the things that we're focused on here is cost recovery improvements, again with council's permission on some things that we're going to propose. Some new software, we'll get into that will help us with our operations. A few new toys in that regard. Addressing some critical fleet improvements. Not every fleet need is met. Not every fleet operation is addressed, but the things that are really most critical to my operating team that says, hey boss, gotta have this one, that's in there. The capital commitments are covered in the projects and the programs that we've committed to, and we'll go over some of those things for you. And then we are trying to respond to the growth and the increases that we see in the market demand. Again, just walking back through the process, we started with the budget guidance memo. Then we moved to the citizen chalkboard. We tried to take a look at what people were focused on, what they thought was important, and if you look through the budget, you'll see a number of those items showing up. We did not fund everything they requested, but we were able to get to a substantial portion of those. So the citizens definitely had their fingerprints on this blueprint. This is just kind of a quick and dirty summary of some of the things that the Citizens Budget Workshop, the Citizen Chalkboard, thought was important. Things like the patrol cars, some trucks in the community services department. These are things that are used every day, and we just have to have replacements. We're just wearing the fleet out that we have. We've managed to keep some promotional dollars in there because the fire department needs to give some examinations and redo their chain of command and do some things that are important to their operations, so that's there. Some of the other things is we got a piece of, not all of, but a piece of some emergency equipment for the fire department, and we did get the paperless court system in and some GIS mapping. Those are some of the things that were mentioned. So let's go into the police department, and Rick can assist me if you have questions I can't respond to, but basically just in summary, we added a position. Right now we have 43 positions in police. We've added the one, so 44. One of the things that we did that just came up, so we didn't have a chance to put it in the presentation, is that we just found out that the Department of Justice has opened up a new round of COPS grants. If you remember, do you all remember those? I've done a few. So we have a new round coming up, and the deadline's coming up fast. So on one of your agendas coming up soon, you may need to look at that. What the rule is, though, is it can't be supplantive. So in other words, let's just say, take this example here, where we're going to go from 43 to 44. We can't apply for a COPS grant for the 44th position. We can apply for a COPS grant for the 45th and 46th position, if, say, you desired to do that, okay? The reimbursement schedule on it is 75, 25 for the first year, second year, and then third year it phases down.
For the first 3 years, and then after that.
Okay, so the 75, 25 for the first 3 years, and then after that, you have to make a commitment to keep the position at 100%.
For how long do we have to get that position?
I think it's for 2 years following.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 fiscal years
We'll
following.
Okay.
So we'll get into the details, but that's basically some where we are personnel-wise. Taking a look at the actual numbers, we're up just a little bit on several of the departments. On code enforcement, that number's up just a bit because we hear that Fulton County is going to start charging us more for animal control, and we're not even sure that we have enough in there. Rick and I just made a judgment call and put an extra 10 grand in there, but we're not sure that it might not cost us more than that. So, questions on this department or costs that you have questions about?
So I have a question about the, I see 43 full-time employees, but what about, I care about the sworn officers.